Before we get further into the video, have you picked up any of my merch? We've got this MySpace deathcore design, complete with edgy slogan and impact font on the back. We've got the generic hardcore shirt, including the Mosh Girl, the Neon Cartoon Monster shirt, a personal favorite of mine by my friend Michael Shantz. There's the Pop Punk with Breakdowns shirt. So if you want some new merch, check it out at the link in the description of this video. Let's talk about the new Suicide Silence song, Thinking in Tongues, which came out yesterday on Century Media. They're back on Century Media, had some lineup changes. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Before we listen to the song, I want to give everyone just a little bit of background on the band in case for some reason you've been living under a rock and you're not familiar with Suicide Silence. In my opinion, it's not my opinion, it is a fact. It is a fact that Suicide Silence are the best deathcore band of all time. It is a fact. I'm just gonna say that. It's a fact. And if you don't agree with me, you're objectively wrong. They came out back in 2005, I think, is their first demo. But this is their first album from 2007 with their original vocalist, Mitch Lucker, who, as most of you know, unfortunately died about 10 years ago. But, I mean, listen to this shit. This is just savage. Savage. I love that snare. That groove, you know, one of the things that always made Suicide Silence stand out to me is the groove, the drumming, and that snare sound. And that's because Alex Lopez, the drummer at the time, he's like a hardcore guy. So he obviously can play metal stuff, but he's like a hardcore guy, and he kind of brought that to the table, which I really like. And this is just so like nasty and filthy. One interesting thing about this album is this was recorded live in the studio, which is very, very rare. For people who don't know, 99% of bands record their shit one person at a time. You record drums, then bass, then guitar, then vocals. That's the way it's almost always done because most bands are not capable of playing their songs from start to finish in the studio tightly enough to make it onto a record. Well, one of the reasons why Suicide Silence is better than every other band in the genre is because they're not like that. They can actually play. One of the reasons why this album sounds the way it is because it was recorded live in the studio. And you can hear it, you know? It just sounds so raw and nasty and pissed. And that guitar tone is so dirty. Shout out to Chris Garza, the legend. Chris Garza, the Jeff Hanneman of deathcore. What I thought was kind of funny is back then, this came out in 2007, back then, they're written off as like a gay scene band, which was so funny because, I mean, listen to this shit. It's like practically like grindcore, right? I mean, this shit is heavy as fuck. There is nothing accessible about this. This is like more raw and nasty than most death metal. But because Mitch was a good-looking guy who was really charismatic, and they played in the Southern California kind of deathcore scene, they had a lot of fans that were, you know, scene kids. Them and Job for a Cowboy, I would say, and Winds of Plague were kind of like the three big bands back then. And as usual, you know, the metal fans, the metal snobs, I should say, they don't judge a band based on how they sound. They judge a band based on how they look and who their fans are. And so the band was really kind of unfairly written off as like, you know, a gay scene band when, in my opinion, the metal fans should have adopted the band for what they are, which is a fucking sick, super heavy metal band. That said, they kind of kept doing their thing, kind of kept evolving their sound. This is the last album they did with Mitch, and I want to point out, this is from 2011. This is before it was cool to play nu metal. And listen to this, you'll hear how nu metal-y this is. Suicide Silence is always been ahead of the curve. I mean, they were doing that deathcore shit in like 2005, did it better than everyone. And by the time everyone else caught up to them, they had already moved on to kind of doing the Korn, Slipknot sort of influence thing. I mean, very Korn here, right? Exactly. They made the wheel, then reinvented it 5 years later. Way before it was cool to play anything kind of nu metal influence. Back then, nu metal still was uncool. Alex the Beast on drums. Mitch's lows and highs were so sick. Like, he was such a fucking good vocalist. Incredible stage presence, like really charismatic, likable guy, but also like for sure the best vocalist in the genre. I know now these days it's all about the Lorna Shore, like vocal gymnastics. It's like who can make the craziest dinosaur sounds. I get it. That's cool. But to me, what Mitch brought to the table was like these deathcore vocals that were insanely aggressive and expressive, but still catchy. It wasn't just like making these absurd noises so that people on TikTok would go crazy over it. It was actually catchy. He could do the screams, like the high screams. He could do the low lows and go between them just like that. Amazing vocalist. And then, unfortunately, Mitch died. I believe it was Halloween of 2012, right? He got in a motorcycle accident on Halloween night and died about 10 years ago now. Unfortunately, it seemed like maybe that was the end of the band, because he's not actually their original singer, but he was, effectively their original singer. He's the vocalist that everyone associated with the band. It seemed like that was the end of the band, but it was not. They got Eddie from All Shall Perish to replace Mitch, who is also a fantastic vocalist. They came back with this album, You Can't Stop Me, in 2014. Which is pretty damn good. And what a tough spot for Eddie to be in, because it's like you're trying to fill the shoes of someone whose shoes just like cannot be filled, right? So on the one hand, if he sounds just like Mitch, then people will say like, oh, he's just a clone of Mitch, this sucks. On the other hand, if he doesn't sound like Mitch, then people will say, oh, well, he sucks compared to Mitch. So it's kind of like either way, it's like, man, what a tough fucking spot to be in. That's such a cool drum pattern. I love Alex's drumming. Eddie's fucking good. Yeah, I agree with that. I can't think of another vocalist during the time who could have done it better than Eddie. That's an important thing. This is almost 10 years ago, 2014. Deathcore vocalists now are much more advanced than they were even 10 years ago. So I still think Eddie is one of the very best. As we will see in the new song. But it's not like there was a lot of people who could fill Mitch's shoes back then. There's like a handful. This shit's good too. Look at that. This is what I'm talking about. The Corona Boys in their calf length camo shorts with the Reeboks and the black socks. This is what I'm talking about. The Corona Boys in their shants playing some deathcore riffs in a tomb. That's what I'm talking about. So I think people liked this album. You can sort of have an opinion about whether it's, lives up to Mitch or not, but I think everyone would agree this album was pretty good. However, what people did not like so much was this one. This really set the band back. In 2017, they came out with this is their self-titled album. They had it produced by Ross Robinson, who is like the definitive nu metal guy. He did Korn's self-titled album. He did Roots for Sepultura, did Slipknot. So he's like, he's the nu metal guy. And they went to him and they did something that was, it is what it is. You can hear it. It's almost like Suicide Silence meets Deftones or something. I'm not sure why they felt the need to do this. They're my friends, so I don't want to be rude. It's not that it's bad. It's just not what people wanted from them. This part's pretty cool. I like this kind of like really raw, dry production. This part sounds pretty good, but it's the part coming up that people didn't like. The cleans. I feel bad for them because, like you heard, up until then, the rest of the song is like, it's a pretty cool Suicide Silence song, right? They do these cleans. They kind of took a chance on that, and it turned into a meme. Jared Dines did his review of it where he made like a tee-hee joke about it, turned into this whole meme, and like it really set the band back, which is not his fault. I think he was just making a joke. He didn't mean to sort of have that sort of an influence. But it did. It really hurt the band. It made people feel like this band sucks now. What are they doing? They fell off. It sucks because they're really good guys and they're my friends. A lot of bands would have quit, A lot of bands would have just said, I guess we're done. Fuck it. People hate us now. We're done. But they didn't. They put out another album, which I think is good. People liked it. But this new shit, this band is fucking back. This shit is good. I've been a fan of this band for a very long time. And I am happy to say that this song is the best thing that they have done in 10 years. It's that fucking good. This is like what I think everyone wanted from them. This is heavy as fuck. It's pissed. Let's listen to it. They are back. Thinking in Tongues. Listen to that. Eddie sounds like a beast. Blasting. Heavy as fuck, so aggressive. Got to give a shout out to Taylor Young from Nails and Twitching Tongues. He produced this album. I think he's like a perfect person to produce this because he has this sort of like, I mean, he's a hardcore guy for one, so he sort of brings that sensibility. Second, he has a very like organic style, which I think works for them because they have that like punk and hardcore kind of sound or side of them. So I think he was the perfect person. Also, shout out to my good friend Morgoth Beats for producing a lot of the vocals on this album as well. I got to go see them record vocals for this last month, and shit's good. They're back. This part sounds so pissed. Alex did play on this. I should say, Alex has left the band. They just announced that, unfortunately, which is too bad because Alex is a fucking awesome drummer. They have a lot of history with them, but you know there were some things going on behind the scenes that that just was no longer a fit for them, and so unfortunately he is no longer in the band. This is the last song that he got to record with them, and he sounds great. Eddie sounds so good on this. This is the best vocal performance Eddie has done with Suicide Silence, in my opinion. Yeah, this is the sound I want too. This is like old school pissed off deathcore. Shit's good. Like, this is what I want deathcore to sound like. It sounds pissed. It sounds energetic. It's not, you know, 6 minutes of dinosaur noises. It's an actual song. Deathcore is supposed to be death metal plus hardcore, right? That's what it's supposed to be to me. And that's what I feel like they have always done better than anyone. And it's a cool video, too. You know, it's simple, but catchy. It's heavy. It's like weird that the deathcore has been around long enough for there to be like an old school deathcore sound, but you know, there is, and this is it. I don't think anybody does this sound better than they do. Here we go. This is what I call a fucking breakdown, right? Not a minute and a half of just single notes while someone makes dinosaur noises. This is pissed. You know, it makes me so happy to see them come back with such a fucking strong song. They've been doing this for so long. They've been through so much as a band, you know, with Mitch and with the self-titled album that people didn't like. And this is fucking good. And I think people are loving it, as they should. There we go. Listen to that. Check it out, New Jacks. You're not the only ones who can make dinosaur noises. Love that drumming too. Well, there you go, my friends. Suicide Silence is back. In my opinion, it is not an opinion, it is a fact that they're the godfathers of deathcore, the best band to ever do it, in my opinion. There's some new school deathcore bands that are great, but to me, when I think of deathcore, there's one and only band that really is head and shoulders above everybody else. That is Suicide Silence, and they have proved it with this song. They're fucking back, and I'm happy. I'm happy to see it. Shout out to everyone involved. Great job. Exactly. It's a breath of fresh air after hearing all the highly produced deathcore the past few years. Nothing wrong with that. You know, the highly produced stuff is cool too, but I don't want all deathcore to be that, right? I want some of it to be nasty and pissed off and raw like this too. And nobody does it better than they do. What a fucking song. It makes me happy. I'm excited.